What would happen if everyone with an IQ below 100 suddenly disappeared? A lot of people in this post seem to think only people with a sub-100 IQ are doing manual labor or low-wage jobs. There are plenty of people with an IQ above 100 who do them. Some people just enjoy working with their hands or are happy where they're at. Just FYI. I did that joke thing where you start typing then hit reply mid-sentence so it looks like you suddenly disappeared. Except I didn't hit the reply button because that's not what happens when you magically disappear. Unfortunately, there is no direct way to show you this. That is why I am describing it a posteriori, as I have since closed that tab with no further record of the event. I just wanted everyone to know that this joke has been done correctly at least once. It was pretty funny, but you had to have been there. I'm going to ignore the impact of half of the world disappearing and even ignore some of the uncomfortably eugenic-ish concepts around this question. I think the interesting to see would be to see who vanishes and who doesn't. That guy you thought was an absolute idiot. Turns out he was above average. And he's still here. Is our government actually full of idiots? Let's find out. Was angsty teenage you right? And were your parents and teachers all stupid? Once the unimaginable grief of losing half the people in their lives becomes old news. A lot of people would be in for a rude adjustment as they discover that they're suddenly of below average intelligence. Everything gets way more competitive, time-consuming, and difficult, until automation replaces enough human labor that ultimately it doesn't matter and the most cutthroat everyone else over. As was inevitable before the disappearing anyway. People would be astounded I was still here. I have a high IQ. This does not mean I am smart. I would still be alive. But my relative position on the spectrum of intelligence would shift so that I would be among the stupidest people alive. On the other end, Mensa would probably start excluding people who were once considered on the lower end of genius level. Give it about 6 more months. They're working on it. Well, there wouldn't be any more anti-vaxxers, so that's nice. Given how IQ is a terrible measurement of intelligence, talent, and worth, I imagine we'd lose a lot of good people. What's the obsession with IQ? Does your IQ determine your worth as person? I mean, they're people with low IQs who are hardworking. Genuine people. There are people with high IQs who are serial killers. So IQ doesn't determine the personality of a person. So my answer to your question is the world would still as duct as it is now. The leftover people would be half below 100. So Earth population would be sucked away until one person, which then has an IQ of exactly 100, so not below 100, is left over. The amount of free space would go up. Less violent crime. Florida. I don't feel so well. I would literally be out of a job since I work with individuals with severe intellectual disabilities. If they suddenly disappeared, I imagine it would be pretty traumatic for all the staff who have grown attached to these folks they've worked with for years. Everyone can and has to agree on this. Some of your closest friends will disappear. Don't try to deny it. I'd miss you. Just kidding. Sorry. Can't talk right now. Currently turning to dust. The world would be thrown into chaos as we lost a lot of the low-wage workers that keep society functioning. As well as all our politicians and most of our celebrities. A ton of African countries have an average IQ significantly below 100 due to lack of educational resources. The effects would be most significant there, where only the best educated people would be left in charge of everything from waste management to construction. Things they likely have never dealt with in their lives. Entire nations would collapse within months. 100 is the median IQ. Meaning half the population will always be below. As soon as you wipe out all those below, you create 2 billion new people below 100. IQ would no longer be a bell curve. Right now most people have close to average intelligence, with rare people being very smart or dumb. Then the new dumb would be 100. Meaning most people would be close to being the dumbest. It'd be even more of a shitfuck. Because there are still going to be smart and dumb people. Just because someone has a high IQ doesn't mean they know how to use it. IQ is based on the population average. So what would happen is 49.9999% of people would be gone. And the IQ scale would reset. And 100 would still be the median. Gonna be honest. I almost wouldn't mind. Most of them would be too above hard physical labor and nothing would get done. Even a lot of non-physical jobs. Good luck finding the guy willing to drive a semi up a steep mountainside cliff road to haul lumber in winter. You have to be missing a few cogs to not be terrified. Cleaner air and children with full bellies. A grateful universe. A thriving universe. We would suffer a loss of essential services in a trying time. Just because someone has a low IQ doesn't mean they don't contribute. By definition, an IQ of 100 is the mean. That's how IQ tests are designed. So if everyone with an IQ below 100 disappeared, the mean would still need to be 100. So everyone's IQ would drop a bit, and again half the world would have an IQ below 100. They would then disappear. This cycle would continue until there is just one person left with an IQ of exactly 100. Real talk. Though. Think about the new population of people going to Mars. The first to go are gonna be smart, healthy, productive, creative, etc. To be an astronaut engineer building a brand new civilization, they're gonna have to be on top of their game. They'll be unknowingly creating a master race. IDK man, but watch The Leftovers. Similar premise. The world would be a clusterfuck of people just smart enough to know it's up, but not smart enough to fix it. Everyone would be too full of themselves to do menial tasks. The majority would be depressed. And the smartest among them would hoard resources. Well, the world would be free of government. And most rich people. You would be surprised who was left. And who is gone. Well, Mike Pence. Better suit up. One way or the other. I can stop worrying about a second Trump term. I'm afraid we're about to know the answer before the pandemic is over. All those who thought it was a hoax. Who believed it was a trick manufactured by the Democrats to win this year's election. Who went to religious gatherings, parties, spring break holidays. Who didn't self-isolate or respect social distancing instructions. Must have had a low IQ. And many got sick. Not all of them will disappear. One hopes. But a great many already have. Or will. The IQ would remain at 100. As it represents the median and the average of the population by definition. In other words, IQ tests regularly get adapted to result in a Gaussian bell curve. But that's probably not what you meant. Well, for one, there would be a whole new set of people with sub-100 IQ scores. IQ is a quotient. That is, it represents intelligence compared to the statistical norm. If you take out everyone sub-100 at a particular point, the statistical norm shifts upwards and all of our IQs will get lower. Keep on doing it indefinitely and eventually. Even if you're the second cleverest person on Earth, you're going to disappear. I know that's not what you meant. And it's pedantic and irritating. But that's the kind of guy the first am. The world would be significantly wider. Because IQ tests were designed in Western countries, i.e. US and Europe, to measure IQ in predominantly white participants. The test basically measures various intellectual skills that are less relevant to day-to-day life in many other cultures around the world. Well, the population would decrease by about 2.5 billion. This means that there would be more food, resources, etc. for the remaining people. The economy wouldn't be affected because anyone below the IQ which determined whether your essence would be dissolved probably wouldn't possess a valuable contribution to society. The people who disappeared would have their homes sold. Money gone to the government which would be invested, which would constitute economic growth. This would mean resources would become more or less valuable through inflation, and there would not be as many people to feed or house. Also, there would be many worldwide re-election campaigns. China would be unfazed, and I think that I would probably stay, although not certain. The US would be without a president and most of his supporters. And just like that, the GOP disappears. Do animals count as everyone? Crime would drop. Overpopulation would disappear. Pollution would reduce. A much more forward-moving generation would take place. The average IQ is apparently 90 to 110, which is 50%. So let's be optimistic and say 30% of humanity has over 100 IQ. The sudden and unexplained disappearance of 7 in 10 people would cause a complete breakdown of wider society. The sheer amount of vital jobs that would go undone. The incredible amount of panic and the grief over missing people. It doesn't matter if those who remain are smarter. They're still human, and most of the people they know just disappeared off the face of the earth. There would be some enclaves that kept working, but most cities would be abandoned and governments and countries collapse. It would take centuries for humanity to recover if we didn't wipe ourselves out in those first few decades, as panic and loss of order drive us closer to extinction. If we do recover, we'll likely never be the same, as the world always remembers the loss of 5.6 billion people.